Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and the number you can call in is 877-757-9424 for The Next Right Thing with Debbie Georgianni and Adam Blai, talking still about that debacle at St. Patrick's Cathedral. So we'll pass it back on over to Debbie and Adam. Good morning.
Good morning, Keith. Thank you so very much. Stay with us, though, because we are opening up the phone lines. If you want to call in and share your opinions about this, your suggestions, how we move forward, how we get refocused with Lent, now is the time to call in 877-757-9424. We heard from Timoteo and Kathy and Nicole on Monday. They shared their comments, their questions, their shock, their dismay, of everything that we're feeling as well. And now there's, like you said, Keith, continued fallout from this and responses from Cardinal Dolan. So we'll be talking about that. But more importantly, Adam is going to definitely share what the massive reparation, what it means for all of us, what we can do, how we need to refocus. But Adam, did you want to just quick recap in case anybody missed last week's the funeral with the transgender activist?
Sure, Deb. So last week there was a funeral service. I think it was initially going to be a mass, and they decided at the last minute not to move forward with the mass. So there was a funeral service for transgender activist in New York City at St. Patrick's Cathedral there, and it got a little raucous, I guess, and a little disruptive, and there were some troubling things that were done in terms of referring to the person as a saint, unfortunately referring directly to sins of essentially sex working as being part of sainthood, I guess. They said so-and-so, Saint so-and-so, mother of all, and one of the words for sex workers, which I don't think, I think anybody basically can understand, that's troublesome regardless of what religious system you're in. Most of society would consider that a sin in the sense that it's disruptive to society, breaks up families, often spreads disease among strangers, is damaging to the heart of all involved, etc. So there was that. There was also yelling over some of the prayers related to Mary and honoring Mary. So there was kind of an insult against God's saints. There was kind of a disruption of honoring Mary. And so there was some problems there. And then there was a massive reparation that, now that the church has had a minute to investigate and figure out everything, they're doing a mass reparation. And if I could just briefly explain what that means. Mm-hmm. Masses of reparation are to basically atone to the Father for sins, for offenses against the Father. And here's an easy way to think about that. Hopefully we all can understand. So imagine that you owned a day rental property over in Europe. Okay, so you had invested in it, you bought this apartment, and, you're here in the United States, so you let a local management company that you pick, you hire them to rent it for you and keep an eye on the property and, do the day-to-day so that you can enjoy your returns on your investment. And then imagine, 1 week you find out that they rented the apartment to somebody without vetting them, and the person basically threw a huge party and trashed the apartment and did a lot of damage and then took off, and they're not to be found. Who would you be angry with? You would probably be upset with the rental company for not kind of properly managing your asset, but you'd also be upset with the people that damaged your property. But it would be both. You would be upset with basically the whole situation. And the massive reparation is kind of the equivalent of kind of making that right, paying to clean the apartment and paying to get the damages fixed. It might be the equivalent of, doing a civil lawsuit against the people that damaged the apartment if there was significant damage, etc. Basically making amends to you for an offense, okay? So that's kind of one way to think about this, that the Father's been offended. Yes, Jesus is an ocean of mercy, but the Father is also there, and the Father, in a sense, often represents justice, or that side of God. You know, Jesus's parables, that every penny will be paid for the sins that we commit in this life, that nothing will be missed when it comes to our judgment. Okay, so a mass of reparation was said for basically offenses against God that happened in the cathedral. And also, by the way, the mass of reparation can be said for many things. It could be said for national sins, like the sin of abortion, and they could be said for the offenses against God of the whole nation in terms of abortion, or regional, something that happened in that area, or in that parish, or in that specific church. They're not just limited to, you know, cathedrals or churches. So that's basically what's occurred. And as we move into this discussion, Deb, I want to remind everybody it's worth talking a little bit about, because there's some catechesis value, like we just did, hopefully. But let's not continue to be distracted by this. We're in Lent. This is a time for our personal reparation to the Father and reflecting on our own sins and growing spiritually. So, yes, it was a problem. The church is addressing it appropriately. And then let's, you know, in a sense, do what the Cardinal said, and that is move on, in the sense that let's focus on our own lives.
Very true. And I'm glad you brought that up, being a distraction. So let's get into that, because I spent many hours late last night going through a ton of video footage, news clips, social media. It's all over the place. It's just exhausting. And all it did was disrupt my spirit, and all it did was disrupt my sleep, and it got me so off focus, right? And it's so frustrating. It's like I'm almost on the verge of tears because of this, because this is such a perfect example of, and tell me, Adam, am I right about this, or am I way off base? This is how evil works. This happened the day after Lent started. The transgender activist died a week earlier. This was, based on my research, this was a stunt, an agenda-driven stunt to make this type of display and this kind of, and gain some kind of attention, or try to do something to get the church to bend in a certain way. Keith used the words fiasco, debacle, catastrophe. You can call it whatever you want. It was scandals, sacrilege, blasphemous. It was all of the above. And now the fallout from that is a bunch of us as Catholics very frustrated, calling for all sorts of things, making comments on social media. You know, in my opinion, it's just like it doesn't serve us very well for Lent. It's the like you said, the massive reparation has taken place. It was done in private. People are calling for it. It should have been in public. Now, it doesn't have to be. Those masses take place all the time. You were sharing that earlier. The people that attended the funeral service, they're saying now they're hurt because, you know, their stunt wasn't fully fulfilled in the outcome that they wanted. Now there's a mass for reparation, so now they feel even more alienated from the church. You've got people on the Catholic attendees of St. Pat's Cathedral saying, what's the big deal? Just move on. Some people are saying that. Some people are saying, you know, this is an outrage. I'm calling for people's resignations. Let's talk to the parish staff, see how this happened. Here's the bottom line. It's taking us off focus. This is what I think, just for me, because this is what I learned last night. It's taking us off focus, and things have been done properly now, okay, to remedy this. So that's good. And I'm sure this is probably not going to happen ever again, because there was such a public outrage. And so that's good. So there's some good that has come out of this, that it was done correctly. I just, tell me what you think about this, and I'd be curious what Keith thinks, because I just think this is a huge distraction, and honestly, we've spent almost a week talking about it.
Yeah. You know, and it's not at all, or at least for my part of this, and I don't think you're saying this, Deb, it's not at all saying that these people are evil. And they may not have had really evil intent in what they were doing. You know, this person was an atheist. It doesn't even make total sense to me why they would want a service in a Catholic cathedral. They were my understanding, they had renounced their Catholic faith. They were self-pronounced atheist, so I'm not sure why they would want that service. But we're not saying that these people were evil. Here's what happens, though. Evil takes advantage of any disruption or division and then tries to amplify that and use it as leverage. So no matter what we do, evil will try to leverage that and say, okay, look at this train wreck over here and just focus on the disruption and the discord and the upset, and then you get upset too, because now if you picture in your mind, there's kind of a pedestal there, and the center of your spiritual life, and what is on that pedestal? It should be God. It should be your relationship with God. If you're Christian, it should be Jesus. If you're Catholic Christian, it should be the Eucharist. And there's different aspects of God that we can focus on there, but it should be God. And if instead we put anger, discord, human failings, celebration of sins that are, I think universally understood to be disruptive and bad for society and for people, if we put all that stuff and all that discord at the center of our spiritual life, which is what social media trains us to do, because you get attention for being scandalous and outraged. Now we just get upset, and we just stay upset for days and days and days, and God is no longer at the center of our spiritual life. Right.
I'm glad you clarified that. And of course, I'm not referring that the people are evil, but like you said, the leverage of evil to the demons to get in there to make things worse. But Keith, I know you got to go to break, and we come back. We do have calls on the line, so that's good. We'll get to them. Thank you, Keith. We do have calls, but real quickly, I just wanted to state something because I got kind of cut off on the break there. We can't judge a person's soul, whether they're going to heaven or hell. That's not for us to do at all. Okay, but we can judge actions. And based on my research, and I mean extensive research last night that I did for The Next Right Thing, for Morning Joy, it is clear that they were dishonest from the very beginning. They lied to the parish staff to get in there. It was, in my opinion, this is my opinion and based on my research, it was a stunt. It was not done in an honest fashion. And when you start off something like that, it's only going to get worse. And Adam, I agree with you. I believe that's when evil creeps in, and then it is used to just have this tangled knots all over the place, and then people are really upset by it. So I just wanted to say that when things start off, dishonest, it's not going to really get better. and so I have a problem with the way this whole thing transpired. I worked at the parish level for 25 years. I can tell you at the parishes that I worked at, this would have never happened. Never. Because we do talk to the families, we do find out if the person is actually a Catholic and what the service was going to be like, and we go through the whole service. So somewhere somebody dropped the ball, but I do think we need to refocus and go back to Lent, because this is me personally, I just spent several hours. I would have rather read something about Saint Therese of Lisieux or Saint Teresa of Avila than reading all about this. But let's go to Lucy in McKinney, Texas, who's waiting so patiently. Hi, Lucy. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, Debbie. Good morning, Adam and Keith. I have very mixed feelings about this, because from what research I did, it does appear that there's no way that the cathedral could not have known, because if they had done a mass, they would have had to have prepared communion hosts for that many people. And for that many people, for a funeral, you would be like, okay, there's a celebrity here. And I also understand that there was an area of pews roped off for clergy. And one of the clergy that was supposed to attend but, declined at the last minute was Father James Martin. So there was knowledge of who this person was. And even the day before, I think Raymond Arroyo said something that this was brought up to the Archdiocese of New York. So, but anyway, but even having said all that, I think for as far as something for the faithful, we're hearing things, and we have, for example, the Diocese of Austin. We have direct orders from the Vatican for the TLM, the traditional Latin Mass, to be stopped just before Easter on March 19th. That's when they could not continue saying the Latin Mass I mean, that's kind of cruel. So, and then you have this. I mean, what I'm trying to get at. There's this trend. There's a trend of taking away the things that are our traditions, and where the most faithful are forming are more in the traditional areas, and then you have fiducia supplicans, which is our latest controversy about the blessing of same-sex couples. So you have this, as far as and for the faithful, we want to have joy. That's what we're called to do. But we're seeing these two different things happening in our church. So I think what we need to do is we need to have some of our church leaders stepping up and saying, no, we do need to go back to this tradition. We need to do this, and we need to have a day of maybe mass reparation, like all of us pray together for our church to go back instead of down this slippery slope that's turning us more into Protestants instead of the Catholics that we're supposed to be. So,
Well, Lucy, let me just, because we've got Jade also waiting to get on, and we only have a short amount of time. I wish we had a whole entire hour to talk about this, and maybe we can do another segment on this. But I'll let Adam comment in just a moment. But Lucy, I just wanted to say this based on my research last night and for many weeks now. Social media and independent podcasters are not helping the situation. I'm just saying that. They somewhat do a good job at communicating, but for the most part, it's sensationalism. It is stoking the flames. It's not getting the full story. It's putting up memes that are so disrespectful about our church and our clergy. It's not helping the situation. I say we just speak the truth and in love with charity and clarity, and we stay faithful. What do you say, Adam?
Yeah, I know there's not much time, Deb, but really briefly, I don't think we can kind of use this to rope in the debate about the Latin Mass. It doesn't all go together. And for my 2 cents, I've known I love the Latin Mass when I've been to it. Wonderful. I love both Masses. I know a number of priests who were alive at the time that the Latin Mass was the standard and said it, and some continue to say it. But it's kind of like looking back at the 50s, it seems to me, where we have this idea of what the 50s was like and say, like, that was the great post-war boom and, America needs to go back to those days. But we didn't live through it. And often our idea of it isn't what it was in reality. So when I've talked with priests that lived through it, there was a lot of problems then, too. There was issues with the way the Mass was said. A lot of the times people didn't understand it. There was reasons that it was changed. And the other thing is the church is an organization of obedience to Jesus Christ, who is the head of the church. So, Vatican II happened. Pope Francis is the Pope. Like, that's the reality now. So to call to, it's not a democratic system where we decide and we call for a change. The head is Jesus, comes down through the structure of the church from the head, and this is the reality that we're in. And I work in exorcism, dealing with the demonic. Diabolos means divider. That is his very nature, is to divide. And so when we call for division, it's not good. It's not what Jesus talked about. He talked about unity and all being one. And so, this is the reality now. And personally, I had an experience during Mass myself, so I know for sure for myself, the Eucharist is real, it's valid, it is Jesus in the new Mass because Jesus gave me that experience. I would believe that anyway because I obey the Church. And I'm not saying other people don't obey the Church. I'm just saying this is where my heart and my head is at. So I think we have to be careful about trying to rope in other arguments along with this story.
Throw in all the different situations and put them all into one. Lucy, I wish we could get back to you. Please call again. We're going to do this open phone lines on Mondays and Wednesdays, and we can keep talking about things that are important to all of us as the lay faithful. So thank you, Lucy. Jade, you've got 1 minute from Abilene, Texas. Go ahead.
Okay, Adam and Debbie, do you believe there's evil people in the world?
Well, sure. I used to work in the prisons in psychology for years. I've worked with evil people.
Everything you described this morning described an evil person to me. But at the end, you said these people aren't evil. Then what are they? They seem very evil to me.
don't forget it.
My bl-
So I don't think we didn't specifically make a judgment on them, but it's important to remember from a Christian theological perspective, it's not our place as humans to judge other humans. Jesus was clear about that. It's the Father's place to judge people. So it's not our place to call somebody evil or not, because we don't know their heart and we don't know where they're going to end up in their journey with God. We don't know everything about them. Only the Father does. It's our place to be merciful. It's just like in the Our Father. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. It's our place to be merciful because we don't know the inside of a person. God knows the inside of you and me, but we don't know the true inside of each other. So
but
we
these
have to
were
be
evil acts done by evil people.
Well,
And,
again,
they can be forgiven. They can be forgiven, but let's call it out for what it is.
Well, I think we did, Jade, because we did talk about the fact that we can and we should admonish and call out evil actions. Correct, Adam?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
You call out the sin, but it's not our place to judge the sinner. It's God's place.
Okay. Well, Jade, thank you so much. Please call us back again on Monday or Wednesday. I love these discussions because it helps us grow and get a better understanding where the faithful is at, and we are the mystical body of Christ. So let's journey together. The next right thing I say is let's get focused on Lent. Take it away,
Amen.
Keith.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Lucy, again, and Jade for calling in. We hear your concerns, absolutely. And that's kind of what we're doing with the next right thing. What do we do for the next right thing? So thank you, Debbie and Adam. We can catch you on the Spirit World every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central, as well as Morning Joy, where truth matters. So stay tuned. We've got Fruitful Living with Sissel Anderson. So stay tuned, and we'll see you after this break.
You're listening to Morning Joy, where truth matters.